Oh, good morning, Councillor Baigent. Are you still Councillor Baigent? It's a bit confusing as to what's happening with the council. So maybe, first of all, you could explain what's going on with the pandemic and lockdowns as to what's...
Right. Yeah, sure. We should have had an election a year ago in May, and the government cancelled that because of the pandemic. And we are due for what is called a councillor all-up, which means that every councillor in Romsey or right throughout the city are all up for re-election. And this has happened because we've had boundary changes. When we have a boundary change, what we have to do is everybody has to be re-elected because they no longer are consistent necessarily with their ward boundary. So everybody goes in the pot. Now, added to that, we have the Police and Crime Commissioner election and the Mayor of Peterborough and Cambridgeshire. And Cambridge. So there'll be 6 people to vote for on the ballot. So it's going to be a little bit complicated. No doubt there'll be different ballot forms. So you'll have the 3 ward councillors will be on one ballot form, I would think. Then there'll be one ballot form for the county councillor. Then there'll be one ballot form for the Police and Crime Commissioner and one ballot form for the Mayor. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. So you'll have 6 people that you can choose to vote for. Actually, our term of office sort of finishes 6 weeks before the actual election. So when we move into a sort of a state called Purdah, where we're sort of floating, we're there as the councillor for that area, but we don't have and we don't involve ourselves in any particular political business unless it becomes absolutely urgent. So if there was something to do with a pandemic, then councillors would act on that. But as regards to starting new projects and things like that, then we don't do anything like that. Does that make sense? I think it does.
The whole of the city council could be a completely new bunch of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And have these happened before, this type of thing?
Not in my sort of era. But whenever there's a boundary change, that's what happens. So if you get a boundary change, I suppose we get boundary change probably every 10 years or so. If it's significant, then the whole council goes up for re-election.
Why are there boundary changes?
Well, the government do that on the basis of keeping areas with a reasonably consistent size of population. So, as places get more and more people, I mean, there will probably come a day when, for example, because of Cambridge expanding so much, we might even get 2 MPs. And we might take in part of the county around us, to make it, but that's done by a suggestedly completely independent body of people do that. So it's supposed to be not politically motivated in any way. So the people that do that are supposed to be totally neutral. So they're not looking to give one side a political advantage.
So have all the boundary lines of all the wards in Cambridge all been changed?
Yeah, as far as yes, they must have been, yeah. I mean, Romsey's only changed so that we've had the very smallest bit of an extra road added on to us. But because the rest of the city, some of the city has changed quite radically. Petersfield has changed radically.
Has it? What with the extra building, you mean?
It's changed because of the extra building in Trumpington. So they've got so many more houses that some of their area has gone over to Petersfield.
Oh, it's like a knock-on effect.
It ricochets round. I mean, when you get a huge estate like you've had in Trumpington Meadows, and you've had thousands and thousands of people come in, so the ward gets out of balance, if so to speak. Now we haven't really changed our size or our boundary really. We're still the same.
Oh, crikey! So this, on top of everything that's happened in the last year, it's big changes basically.
Well, indeed. I mean, it's complicated when a whole council goes up, because theoretically it could change. I mean, we have the Labour Party at the moment have a overwhelming lead over the Lib Dems. There are no Tories and there are no independent, or one independent. So, we are firmly in control of the council, and you wouldn't expect it to change because it would be a massive leap. You would expect to change. I think we've got something like 10 seats majority. And in that situation, you would expect that would take 2 elections at least to change, even if it went really badly wrong. So it should stay as it is, but we don't know, because you can get strange effects. Something really bad could happen and you wouldn't be able to recover it.
Right.
It's possible. Or something really good could happen, and then the Lib Dems would really suffer, because, you know, people will go, well, the Labour Party, well, as they have, the Labour Party have done brilliantly during this pandemic. We've held it together. We've set up emergency feeding for people. We've housed all the people that are living on the streets. There's nobody on the streets that is there because they can't get a roof over their head. They're only there because they're refusing assistance. And out of that, we've solved our street life problem, if you like, because what we've said now is that we're going to keep this moving. So anybody who's sleeping on the streets will be given some form of accommodation. And
Really?
they'll be moving on to a pattern, where a holding pattern, where they'll move up into proper accommodation. Like some of them will start off in hotels, then they'll move into some of the houses that we have, and then the whole project will move along. We've got a whole scheme in place where they eventually will end up in something on their own, if you know what I mean. But this will all be supported. I mean, it's been an embarrassment for the whole country, and especially for Cambridge, that we've had this situation of homelessness, or people living on the streets, not homelessness.
All right.
And we've solved that. We've stopped it. At enormous cost, enormous amount of effort by the officers and the politicians involved, but it's been stopped.
All right. So from now on, there will, as you say, the only people that will be sleeping rough will be people who choose to and refuse to be housed. And this is going to be an ongoing thing from now on, is it?
Well, whilst Labour are in power, yes. And they really do have to refuse. We have a team of people who go out on the streets and try and persuade these people to come in undercover. And so if you see somebody begging on the streets and they say they're homeless, they're either not telling you the truth, or they're homeless because they've chosen to be.
Right, and you've even got people helping these people to fill in forms, etc., and walk them through it.
We have a street outreach team that go out searching for people. As soon as they're notified of somebody sleeping on the street, they go out and see them in the evenings and try and get them to come in. And then once they come in, they come into a scheme that effectively shepherds them towards normal living.
I heard in the past, Cambridge was good at looking after homeless people. So what happens in turn is word gets out throughout the country, and then you get a lot of people making Cambridge a destination for being down and out.
Well, there's a lot of fear about that, but it hasn't turned out to be that way.
It hasn't, but no. You've only just introducing this.
Well, we've been doing it a year.
People can't move around freely under this pandemic, can they?
No, not so well. But I think some people can. But yeah, I agree. I mean, and we'll face that problem when it comes.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to be cynical and say if 1,000 people turned up tomorrow, we'd house them, because that clearly wouldn't be something that we would be able to do. But in the normal scheme of things, with given a following wind, we're on top of this now, and that is probably one of the best things we've ever done. You know, because nobody likes to see homeless people. Nobody likes to see people decaying because of their lifestyle. You know, and on top of that, we built we're nearly finished building 500 council houses. We've made the mayor look at an absolute, tyrant, really. I mean, we got given £70 million to spend in 5 years. Well, I think we're on the 3rd year, and next year we'll have spent it. The mayor was given £100 million, and the government have taken most of it back from him because he's not using it properly. I mean, he's really let the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough down in regards to, in the normal way of things. In our lifetimes, it was always that the government fed back money that they brought in from the population to local councils to spend. That has been, since the Tories have been in power, the 10 years they've been in power, each year they've eroded that. And last year was the last time they paid any money to Cambridge. So we have to take ours from the council tax that we collect, which is about, we get something like 5% of the council tax that people pay. The police get more than we do. And then other ways that we found to make income. Now, we make income out of our car parks. We do make quite a lot, or have made, not in the last year, of course. We have made quite a lot of income out of our car parks. And we also have done some quite wise investments in using some of our reserves in buying some industrial properties that came on the market cheaply because somebody wanted to get rid of them quickly, and we just stepped in. We make money from the fact that we own property in the Grand Arcade and the Grafton Centre. You know, we own bits of property, but all that, of course, is a little bit under threat at the moment because we don't know what's going to happen to the Grand Arcade. And if John Lewis's goes, which by the time you publish this, I suspect that decision will have been made, that is going to really threaten the city centre.
Getting back to Mill Road then, and Romsey.
Getting back to Mill Road, yeah. Why we're here in the first place.
Well, Mill Road, it seems, was going towards more restaurants and cafes. And in some ways, this bridge closure enhances that possibility. But in other ways, they are the businesses that have been most affected and that will find it most difficult to come back. So how do you think Romsey and Petersfield are going to change as we come out of lockdown?
1/3 there's about 150 businesses on Mill Road. Very few of them have actually gone to the wall. Most of them are still there. There's been a lot of government support. You can't take it away from the Tories. They have done a lot to support small businesses. And so people in small businesses haven't necessarily collapsed just because they've had to. You can't shut shop for 6 months without paying it compensation. Now, I don't think the shops have made loads of money out of that, but, you know, the world's a very different place. And I think the government acted well in the way they arranged to keep people's head above water. There'll always be people that lose out. And there'll probably be some people that actually gain. But how do I see it going? Well, 1/3 of the shops are restaurants. If they come back, and I'm assuming that they will come back, I think that they'll take off like wildfire because we haven't been able to go out for a meal. We haven't been able to go out and entertain. We haven't been able to go out and meet our friends. So I think local businesses will do particularly well in that sort of catering side. Now, on top of that, the local supermarkets have seemed to have been doing quite well to me. I mean, I go in the Co-op and I use the new Harvest shop in Romsey. I pop into the Tesco's now and again. And as far as I've seen, the shops are doing quite well. And obviously my role is to be informed. So I talk to people in the shop, you know, how's it going? And whenever I go in the shop, and I suppose over the course of the year, I've probably been in every shop and bought something in Romsey. And every shopkeeper I've spoken to I've asked them about how's it going? You know, are you going to survive? Is there anything we can do to help? There's been one shop told me that they won't survive. There's possibly a second shop that's thinking that they won't survive. But these are people that are maybe making business decisions at this time rather than being pushed under because the bridge is shut. The hardware shop just up towards the bridge that everybody will have known and probably everybody used, that suddenly shut, if you remember, and the new shop Harvest came in its place.
Kailash, yeah.
Yeah, came in the next day. They were in there the next day refitting it. Now, Mr. Kailash, whatever his name was looking to retire for 3 years. His shop's been on the market for 3 years. He wasn't put out of business by the bridge shutting. He was put out of business because he was retiring. And he sold that shop and the new people came in the next day. So this wasn't something that he collapsed and couldn't survive. So the stories that's gone round about Kailash are just wrong and untrue and actually disingenuous. He didn't get beaten out of business. He's been on the market for 3 years. He wanted to retire, and yes, and now he's happy. You know, and straight away that shop, well, now that shop's been filled by something which is another competitor to the existing supermarkets. Bit more upmarket, a lot more expensive, but seems to be doing quite well. Wonderful service in there, really good team of people working, you know, properly trained staff. It's interesting. The pizza shops, fish and chip shops, they're all doing well. They're all doing okay, considering. And the minute this pandemic ends, the minute this lockdown comes off, if it stays as it's designed to be, people will be going out and using them. So they will be the drawer. They will get people back onto Mill Road. I've also personally been, because I'm a member of the Greater Cambridge Partnership, I've ensured that Mill Road's being put on what they call a route way from the railway station to the city centre. So people are going to be guided through the car park and into Mill Road and then into the city centre. So it'll become a destination place, which is going to increase the footfall.
Really? What? Walking, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, why? That's a complete detour, isn't it?
Well, it's not actually, if you look at the map, it's not, if somebody's going to the city centre, Parker's Peace area, then they come just as quick by coming down Devonshire Road and up Mill Road as they would if they were going into town via Hills Road and Station Road.
Yeah, but then they've got to cross Parker's Peace to get to the city centre.
Yeah, but they've got...
I mean, is this people who don't know Cambridge, you mean? Just
yeah.
visit? This
will be people that are coming in for day trips, and Mill Road will become a bit more. The footfall might be.
Well,
I'm not promising there'll be 1 million people walking down Mill Road again, but the point is that there will be more people, and if the traders of Mill Road set their cap in that direction, then there'll be an opportunity for more people going through Mill Road then.
Petersfield, you mean?
Yeah, well, they can actually, if Mill Road became a destination place, I mean, it's already got a reputation around the world for what it is and what it provides. If people were to step up their game in that direction, people might just come to Cambridge to visit Mill Road.
I think it's time to talk about the whole bridge thing.
Yep.
And I know, you know, it was necessary in a lot of ways to close the bridge because of the social distancing, etc., etc. But it did happen quite suddenly, it would seem, and a lot of people, I don't know what the proportion is, are not happy, and there are traders that are also not happy. And then also, obviously, the whole thing about the review that people thought it was going to be reviewed at the end of the 6 months, and that now is being pushed back. Have you got comments?
I've got a bit of a story about all of that, which might actually give you more than me trying to answer individual questions. When the bridge was shut, it came out of the blue. Nobody expected it. Even the county councillors didn't expect it. The government made a decision, gave the county councils money to actually look at areas where there was huge congestion of people and try and reduce traffic flows or make it more pedestrian friendly so that people didn't bump into each other all the time. And so the county council chose, as an example, they chose Mill Road, and they shut Mill Road to traffic, or the bridge to most of the traffic, so that people could move about without having to touch each other. As it was, people used to have to walk into the road to pass each other on Mill Road Bridge and along Mill Road. People were always doing it. The situation is that it happened and nobody had any say. We weren't even asked, we were only told. And I understand it's not the best way of running a place, but there was history. There was history of what happens because of when the bridge was shut in 2019 for the repairs. They know the sort of effect that it had on Mill Road. They know how much it affected traders. They know how the populations responded. We knew as a city council or as city councillors from our door knocking that the question that nearly everybody asked us when we knock on the door, when are you going to get the bridge shut again? Now, people don't believe us. The traders definitely don't believe us, but we know because that's what we do. We knock on every front door in Romsey 3 times a year. Now, we don't speak to everybody in Romsey 3 times a year, but we speak to something like 57% of the population of Romsey every year. And the question everybody was asking us was, can you get that bridge shut? We loved it in 2019. There were some people that had some empathy with the traders. There were some people that were angry because they wanted to drive their cars over there. But the majority of people prior to the pandemic were in favour of that bridge being shut again. People say that I'm lying. People say that I'm... In fact, people have been really rude about me, actually, on some of the social medias, really rude about me. The reality is that I'm representing the people of Romsey. That's my role.
It's a tricky one to balance, but the point is that the survey that was done about the bridge that was supposed to reflect opinion was just completely messed up, wasn't it?
Well, let's be fair, why it was messed up. It was messed up because people made multiple entries. Now, whether that could have been prevented, I'm sure it could have been, and I'm not blaming, it's not my council, it's the county council. I'm quite happy for them to take the weight of responsibility on this. You know, it was messed up because people tried to cheat the system. Now, I don't know if it was one person, whether it was a computer, whether it was 100 people, but the quantitative data was destroyed because so many people made duplicate entries or triplicate or quadruplicate entries. The qualitative data is still there. Now they're going to use the qualitative data, and they are actually using it right now to help to make that decision.
Yeah, but why couldn't they have used the quality? I mean, I know you can't answer for them, but why couldn't they have used that qualitative data to review the decision after the 6 months as they promised to do?
Well, because it got cheated, because they either set it up wrong, but people cheated. It's as simple as that.
No, but you just said the qualitative data was defected by the fact that duplication.
No, the qualitative data, and they are using that qualitative data now, but they had 3,000 entries, and that has to be understood and analysed and hypothesised by the people that are doing the reading. The numbers would have been easy.
So are you saying that after, when they said it'll be reviewed after 6 months, what they meant was we will begin to review it after 6 months, and it'll take us 6 months to review it to get the results. So it'll actually be a chance to change anything after 12 months.
Yeah, I guess that's what they may have been saying. But it's not my party that's in power. It's not my party. We have absolutely no control. We don't have a single Conservative county councillor representing any part of Cambridge City. And yet Cambridge City, most of its budget, the 95% that's left out the council tax, goes to the county council, which is totally Tory controlled, overwhelmingly Tory controlled. Now, there is something ironic about the wealth giver in Cambridge not actually having any say at all. All we are is a protest group. I mean, there's 7 Labour Party, and I think the Lib Dems have got a couple more, you know, but there's something like 40 Tories. You know, it's wrong. It's simply wrong. But that's how democracy's run in Cambridge for a long time now.
Well, this is austerity in general, isn't it?
Well, I think it's been like it in Cambridge a long time, and it may be austerity in general, but it's wrong. You know, that's how we get into this situation about the bridge. It wasn't a city decision. It wasn't a democratic decision. It was a decision taken in an autocratic way by a council that was given total power by the government to do something. And then we get muddled up in the melee of people, shopkeepers, saying that it's wrong. The reality is there's 20,000 people live in this area, 20,000 people. A lot of them have been helped and prevented from getting COVID because the crush down Mill Road has been, people have been allowed to spread out a bit. There's been a lot of other reasons. It's not the only reason. But it was really dangerous for people to walk over Mill Road Bridge and down certain sections of Mill Road in the way that they used to without being able to walk into the road relatively safely.
That throws a little bit of light on the subject.
There's a real opportunity. We can remodel Mill Road around the society that it is. It's supermarkets. Let's have people, there's some on Mill Road that have food out on the front. Let's get them all doing that. Let's get that sort of arrangement made.
But there are specialist shops still on Mill Road that people do travel from outside of Cambridge to come to.
Of course there are. Yeah, some.
And
but you don't model.
It'd be a shame if they were all, you know, lost business and had to go out of business because of...
There is no shop on Mill Road that people can't drive to.
Well, the long way around, you mean?
Well, you can, at worst, if you want to, at worst, you can park in Govia Street. That way you've got half the road one way and half the road the other way. There's no great, you're never very far from a shop. Now, I know if you're disabled, of course you're disadvantaged in some way.
You as local councillors, Labour councillors in Romsey and Petersfield, are you able to exert any influence over trying to get, say, either taxis or disabled drivers access to the bridge?
I'm sure that we would be able to once it's all settled.
What do you mean once it's all settled?
Well, the county council have to make a decision first, don't they, about whether they're going to open it or shut it. They will make that decision. Their transport committee will make that decision. Then we will be in there arguing at that time. But we get the right to talk at their committee meeting for 3 minutes. That's all we get. We can talk to them outside of the meeting, and of course we do. But what we first of all need is to get the county council to make a decision. Are they going to shut it or are they going to open it? I'm sure that if all 8 councillors went to the county council with something that was arbitrary, like the taxis, for example, shall we let the taxis over? No, let's talk about the disabled people. If we went to the county council about the disabled people and lobbied them and they had no particular interest in that, then I'm sure they would listen to us. But I'm sure they'd be there already if that was their position. I mean, the decision, we in Romsey will support blue badges able to go over the bridge. No
taxis. And taxis.
And taxis, I am always in discussion with the Taxi Drivers Association. Right at this moment, we are still discussing what might work. Our fear, if there is one, and we haven't made a decision on this, is that if you get just taxis coming up and down the road, they'll be flying up there too fast. If the taxi drivers promised and kept to it that they would only drive at 20 miles an hour, then I think that Romsey would support them being able to go over the bridge. But we know from the way that they drive, even on the road right now, that they don't follow speed limits.
As you say, I don't know how that could be enforced, because they could say, yes, okay, well, we promised to go below 20 miles an hour, but you know, drivers being drivers, they sometimes go over 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, but they're not drivers, they're professionals. And they're asking for a special waiver to allow them to go over Mill Road Bridge. And we'll get into that discussion as and when the decision's made as to whether it's going to be closed or not. And, you know, if people want their taxis to come over Mill Road Bridge, then they'll ask for that. Romsey is a democracy. I've read so many slanderous, abusive, violent comments about me and people lining up, and you'll have seen it on Twitter and you'll have seen it on Nextdoor, where people line up to throw bricks at me, and then they ask me a question, so I answer the question, and then they pick holes in that. And it's 7 or 8 people. It seems like the whole of Romsey is attacking me, but it isn't. And actually, when you look at those on Nextdoor, there's about 1/5 of the people that are moaning are from Romsey. The others are from other areas. I don't even represent those areas. We didn't realise at the onset of the roadworks on Mill Road Bridge that the Trainwash that everybody was talking about, who actually weren't particularly talking about, because they talked about improvements to the railway because of the new Brighton line. And so it wasn't our business, it wasn't our problem. we negotiated a fairly good deal over the closure of the bridge in 2019. And then suddenly they came along and said they're going to move the Trainwash into people's back gardens virtually in Great Eastern Street. And that it was going to run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and that it was going to be, 60 feet from people's back doors. So we said, no, well, that's not fair. You know, let's see the planning permission. And they said they didn't need planning permission, and they didn't need planning permission. So we fought a battle, and I was very honest with the people of Great Eastern Street. I said, the more noise you make, the more difference you'll make. But the very powerful situation is probably going to be that you are going to lose. And we fought long and hard, and they fought one of the best local campaigns that's ever been fought in Cambridge. They were magnificent.
Yeah.
But the railway people just said, well, we're going to build it. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what happened. The City Council had absolutely no control over what they were doing. And it came as a shock, even to our planners, I think, that when we tested it in law, because we got a barrister and everything, that we were told, you can't stop it. They can do what they like. It's on the railway. If it's part of the running stock on the railway can do what they like.
But everyone knew this in the first place, didn't they?
Yeah.
From the bridge closure in 2019. That was why they were closing the bridge, to build so the trains could be diverted into a train wash thing.
Well, I don't think that was obvious. I really don't.
Really?
We were told it was being done so that the new Brighton line could run successfully. Now, what it was about shunting on a bit of track on that side where the existing train wash was to this side where they're going to build a new train wash. And people weren't aware of that. Now, maybe of course we should have been, if you look back in hindsight, if we'd have known.
Well, it said it on the meeting originally in the hotel in the central town.
That first meeting?
Yeah.
I wasn't at the whole meeting. I had to leave, but I didn't pick that up. The railway had permission to build anything on their land, almost anything that's to do with running the railway, without asking anybody's permission. We went through this dance because they have to consult, but don't mean they have to take any notice. So they consulted. So they can't just rock up one day and build it, but they've got to tell you they're going to build it, and then they can go on and build it after they've talked to you about it. You don't have any authority with them at all. And that's archaic. And it's more archaic in a situation like this, where you're coming into a conservation area and plonking down this massive, great big warehouse that's going to run 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That's archaic. That legislation was never designed for that purpose. It was about getting railways built. It weren't about doing this.
Yeah, but the train wash won't be running 24 hours a day, will it?
Yeah. The only time, well, it may not be running so much during the day, but they do their train washing at night when the trains are parked. So they bring them in for parking for the night, for state stabling, they call it, and they'll wash them then.
So it'll just be a rumble that people along that side of the Great Eastern Street.
It will be a noise that people along that road will hear. Whether it will affect them as much as they argue, I don't know. But the point is that it can. And during the summer it will, because you'll have your windows open at night. And you know what the most noisy thing is about these places? I'm 50 yards from where they clean the trains inside. And they do that overnight. I live 50 yards from that.
Do you?
Not even that far, actually. I can see it. You know, it's there. I can almost touch it at the end of Cavendish Road. The noisy thing are the people that are working there, shouting to each other from train to train all night long, making jokes, talking to each other. That's the thing that's noisy. That's what wakes you up. Suddenly you've heard somebody go, oh, hey, look at this. You know, and it's pitch quiet.
Right.
We've got millions of miles of railway track, and they have to put it in the end of somebody's back garden. You know, so not central London. Go 50 yards, 500 yards that way, you're in open land. Go 500 yards that way, you're in open land. And they have to put it in the middle of the city. Sad. Every Monday, I and other councillors and candidates, and more so candidates now, are available for 1 hour from 6:30 to 7:30 on an open Zoom meeting. And people from the local area are invited to come and ask us any questions they want. And that is available on social media and on most telegraph poles in Romsey. It's up there on a leaflet. And if anybody wants to know the Zoom address, then just email me, dave.baigent@cambridge.gov.uk, or ring me. It's, you know, I'm an available councillor, and I want to be available, and I want to represent the people that I am elected to represent. All the people, even the people that don't vote for me.